Sandi. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for inviting us.
Good. Hang on a second.
Hey, Karen.
Sneaky. He wanted to be sneaky.
I'm painfully aware
sneaky guy.
that people like her more than me, so I'm sort of hedging my bets here on this being.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
So, no, very excited to see you guys, and it's been.
It was a pleasure to have you up in our neck of the woods this summer too.
I know. Well, this is sort of making up for the fact that Karen couldn't come with me.
Yeah.
So
No, okay.
we look
We'll
forward
take
to
it.
when it's not.
Enjoy the
snow.
fire while you've got it there, Karen.
Yeah. So there's a lot of snow on the ground now, though.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Yep.
Yeah. Not that much. A lot of sunshine on the ground here in Bakersfield. So.
Oh, sorry.
Baking you like you do, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, well, thanks for taking some time. It's been really fun
Gladly.
these conversations. And when you ask the question of how did your Continental experience manifest itself in what you do now and in the years since, you get some great stories and some great answers. And so that's my question for you guys. How does your Continental experience make a difference in your lives?
Besides every day, it starts with being told all along that you're world changers. And the thing for me that I was not anticipating was how much the world was going to change me.
Mm.
And you and I both have a passion for the internationals, and you directed the very first international group based in Holland. I had the pleasure of following you the next year to direct the group 2 years running.
Right.
And it was at a time when everything was in tumult in politics and world history. I mean, by the time I was done directing my 2 tours there out of Holland, the wall had come down. In fact, it came down while I was on the road with the British Continentals in Italy that fall of '89. So when you watch history happen, and you were actually present for a lot of it happening, and you know some of the people that actually changed history in the nations they were with,
Right.
I mean, what explains that we had the opportunity to actually sit down and be part of something as 20-something-year-olds? I mean, it doesn't make any sense other than that God put you there and that Continental Ministries believed in us enough to say, go, and we trust you with the people we're going to give you on these tours. And we built a lot of faith that God was going to use us in the time that we had. And sure enough, we did.
Growing up in a small town in Texas, I always knew or thought that there was a bigger picture for me to see and to be part of. My family went on mission trips to the Mexico-U.S. border almost every summer. And it just kind of sparked something in me that was not going to hold me in a small town. And Continentals kind of really opened up that world for me. And when I was able to tour and see the world and see other people of faith and different backgrounds and whatever wherever they came from, it changed me. It changed my perspective. I think how it's come into our life now and gone on to be with what we're doing with Compassion Radio is that it's given me a perspective of being a guest in someone's home and listening to their story.
That's great.
Hearing what God is doing in their lives and what they are doing for the kingdom and in the kingdom.
Right.
Hospitality has become a two-way street now for us.
Right.
We're there to welcome them into our experience, and we tell them we have ears out there in America that want to hear your story. We'd love to spend some time with you, and they're busy serving you like crazy. You're sitting on a mat and getting 3 cups of tea, where something's happening nonstop because the hospitality requires that.
Right.
But there's a hospitality of spirit too that God requires of us to be open and willing to bring into us and to receive whatever God sends us. And by bringing us somewhere, He's sending something to us.
Right.
And we call it on the radio the ministry of showing up. And going to a host home is pretty much the same thing. You have no idea who you're going to end up with in the same room, the same car, in the same house that night. But you end up with people that God has literally ordained for that moment to be interacting with you because He had a purpose in that. Go ahead.
What would you say the overlap is between your Continental experience and Compassion Radio specifically? Like what is, if anything, makes you better at what you're doing now because of your Continental experience?
Well, Continentals is a compassionate and communication-oriented proclamation ministry. They're using all the arts at your disposal to communicate truth and to show people that it's a living word, that this word is coming to them to transform them, but to be with them in what they're going through. This is not a set of doctrines we're trying to impose on evangelicalism across the world.
Right.
This is who we've discovered in our lives wants to be with us in what we're going through and wants to bring us through what we're in to something that brings glory to him, builds the kingdom, and has eternal significance.
Hmm.
What we say on the radio every day has to be fresh and new. It's not like we get through the same program every day like we do on the road, but nonetheless, we have faith that we can discover things here in this day that God has divine appointments set up for out there. So ears that are actually going to hear our program are part of this. Whether we hear from them or not is irrelevant. And
Right.
we don't hear from 99% of the people we perform for. They were there to clap along and enjoy maybe you saw a smile or something, or you talked to them briefly at the record table.
Right.
We don't always know the eternal significance that moment had for
Mhm.
them, but we have to have faith that God does. And he knows those things and will someday make the whole narrative become a reality for us, maybe in heaven someday.
Right.
But over the years, we have actually met people along the way who have encountered the Continentals as we did it back then that were transformed, that changed a lot of things. And they were able to tell us that story. And we actually got some of those kind of people as we traveled, even with the work we do with Compassion Radio,
Mhm.
that were transformed by the ministry of Continentals and the hundreds of other ministries that came out of Continentals because Continentals went and did something.
Right.
That always profoundly affected me, that Continentals was building people who knew how to build. They knew how to hold hammers. They knew how to put up things. They knew how to put up with things in order to get important things done.
Wow, that's great. There's a great
That's
way to
really
frame it up.
awesome.
I'm always amazed. We call that the ripple effect, is that
Yeah.
that something happened here in this experience that then got duplicated elsewhere in something else and inspired some other great effort. And so I'm excited about that. That's what keeps me going. That's, even we don't have a US based touring operation anymore, but all these groups exist around the world, and they're creating things as well. They're creating a ripple effect where they are, and they're doing it in other languages, which is really cool. So
Yeah, early on, our passion, both of us, were for the international groups because they were just really coming into their own at the time. And I got to direct those groups during some momentous times in history.
yeah, in Europe.
Going.
Yeah.
But I never expected my experience with Continentals to be something that was truly multi-generational. I really had grandparents that I traveled with that were watching over us. And our kids got to travel with the young Continentals years later. And we got to watch our kids come up and have their own experience and their own word to share about what God's doing in their generation. So in our own family, we've had experiences with encores, with regular Continentals and young Continentals just woven into our lives.
Wow. As have we. That's incredible.
Yeah.
One of the funnest things that I love when our kids start talking about Continentals is that when we travel as a family, we always road trip because 6 people is a lot to buy plane tickets for. So we road trip it, and we typically stay with Continentals on the way when we're traveling all over the country.
Who are you staying with tonight, Mom?
Yeah, and when did you travel with them, or this or that?
What's in your sack lunch?
Right, exactly. And one of our daughters went on a road trip with her best friend just out of high school. They took a road trip and traveled up to Maine, actually. And so we're along the way plotting how long the drive is going to be so the next Continental family can host them as they travel along the way. And her friend was just like, who are these people? And my daughter's like, I don't know, but my parents know them, we'll be fine, and that's another great legacy that the Continentals.
I'm sure there are thousands more of those kind of stories.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking a few minutes to talk about your thoughts and your experience. And, I remember the old tagline, the Continentals was the experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I always invert it. For me, it's been a lifetime of experience. And I think it's been much the same for you guys, and lots of overlap with what you're doing with Compassion Radio. So that's really cool and something to be proud of. So
I don't think I can imagine my life, what it would have been like without my experience with the Continentals. I mean, it's that significant for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The trust factor that Cam showed in a young person. Of course you can do this. Why? No. And you came from a house where you're being questioned whether you can even go away to college.
Are you wearing that somewhere?
Yeah.
We had a conversation with the leadership team from 1984 trip, just a week ago. And what Andy McClellan was saying, can you believe John Eric was 21 years old? And we were sent to Poland, of all places. A very volatile communist country.
Yeah.
And what was Cam thinking? It was was one of the things that we said. And we're like, well, somehow we made it. We survived, you know.
Bram, you were young. How old were you on your first tour directing?
For sure, directing, I would think 22, 23, somewhere.
You were 18 on that
I was
tour.
18 as an AD with John Eric, and I did a number of tours over the middle 80s.
Yeah. I always remember Cam's yardstick as one of the primary things that is my takeaway is, you know, when we would evaluate possible directors and assistants and things at the end, you know, some had a lot of degrees in academia. Some people were, you know, more studio type people or church worship leaders. The bottom line for Cam was always, will anybody follow this person?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me has over and over and over again has served as a great yardstick in a lot of settings to think, is this a leader? Will somebody really follow this person? And so that's a great gift that he gave to all of us, I think. So
in my case, of course, being a Floria, I had to take like one step back from that. So did the leadership in Continentals, and Cam had to stay out of it completely. So I know my calculus was probably a bit different for the staff in deciding whether or not someone who was that close to the family could be entrusted with not just getting out there and coasting.
Right.
And
to be able to lead. And it was
a period in our lives and a period in church history around the world that demanded people stepping up in really aggressive ways to be brave.
Yeah.
And that generation, I don't think is going to repeat itself, but this generation has its own challenges. And every country you're coaching right now, Jim, they've got the same issue. When the next generation comes up, the kids that watch their parents lead their country into a new expectation for what arts and ministry could become.
Right.
They'll have to decide, are these people of the same spirit? Do they have the same stick-to-itiveness and the go-get-emness that's going to be able to transform their generation? And so we got to be speaking in now into those generations to raise up the next generation of leaders. And I'm thrilled that you actually have a chance to be part of that in so many countries now.
Yeah, me too. Well, that's going to be the last word. Good job.
Yeah.
You put a nice bookend on that. It's great to talk to you guys. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And,
It's great to see you guys.
We're looking
You
forward
too.
to hopefully being up there sometime soon together. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
Let
take
us
it.
know. Let us know.
Bundle
right.
up in the snow.
Yes. Yes. We have snow pants if you need them.
Okay.
Good tip.
Have you ever wished you could gift your life-changing Continental experience to someone else? Well, you can. Your monthly giving can make a huge impact for our teams all over the world. Did you know that this year, we'll have more than 20 Continental groups on the road, communicating in 7 different languages? The Continental story goes on, so keep writing your part of it by being on our support team. And our groups will say, thank you, in 7 different languages.